Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of season 3 of the Husky Huddle Up podcast. I'm so excited that you're here for this first episode. My name is Emily Colby. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of first year curriculum and engagement in first year programs at the University of Washington. I hope that you've had a chance to listen to the episodes from seasons 1 and 2, and I'm excited that we have a new co host this season. Do you want to introduce yourself, Zach?
Yeah, thank you, Emily. My name is Zach Fairchild. I come to the University of Washington after 10 years at the University of Oregon as your new Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. So if you're familiar with Jana, she is my new boss, which is fabulous. So I'm super excited to be here supporting our parents and families and all that we do, and to talk a little bit about our guest today.
Yeah, we love Jana, and I'm so excited that now the two of you are like the dynamic duo over in Parent and Family Program. So I'm excited for our families to get to know you even more throughout the season. On this particular episode, I'm also excited that our first guest this season is Mehvash Ali, who is a clinical psychologist from the University of Washington Counseling Center. I have to say that yesterday was our first family orientation session, and the UW Counseling Center presentation is just so important as we're thinking about supporting our new students. So I'm excited to get to talk with her about services and supporting our new students, our continuing students. Um, could you go ahead and introduce yourselves for our listeners?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that introduction. So I'm very excited to be here on this podcast. Thank you so much for inviting me. I am a clinical psychologist and I have been with the UW Counseling Center for about a year and a half for this round of my work experience. I was actually at the UW Counseling Center as part of my graduate training, like almost, oh gosh, I want to say like 15 plus years ago. So it's very nice to be back here as a professional staff after being a trainee at the counseling center.
Oh, wow. I love that you say that you're back for this round. Do you feel like, and this is a little outside of what we're talking about, but I'm curious if you've noticed changes at the University of Washington since you've been back, or things, yeah, now as we're moving into academic year 2023, 2024, that you're excited for?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the most obvious thing, since I was a trainee here, is that our staff is much, much bigger. So we have almost like 40 staff members at the counseling center. It's a big team. And certainly our services have expanded and diversified. And I'm excited to share the different types of services that we offer with our listeners today.
Oh, wow. That is really exciting. That's such a growth. Before we dive too much into talking about the UW Counseling Center, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about you. You know, what inspired you to go into this field? Are you a Pacific Northwest native? You know, kind of wherever you want to start.
Yeah. Um, well, am I a Pacific Northwest native? That's a very hard question. People always ask me, like, where are you from? And to me, that's the hardest question to answer because I've lived everywhere. So I don't know where I'm from. But I am a UW graduate. So I did my undergrad here. And I was a bio major. And I absolutely loved it. And I was, on the track to go to med school. I'm Asian, so, that fits in with the stereotype. But then I took an intro psych class in my senior year. My senior year, yeah. And I just fell in love with psychology. And I'd never, ever done any psych courses before. So it was like eye-opening and life-changing for me. So then I switched my major in my senior year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my parents did not enjoy that, let me tell you. Um, but I have not looked back. Yeah, so I've just been kind of pursuing psychology since then.
I love that story and just sort of the reminder that so often students come in, they think, oh, this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I feel like I should do. But it's the power of that, like one class, that intro course that sort of hooks you. No, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's nice to hear where folks come from and kind of their journey to the University of Washington. I know that the UW Counseling Center has been around for 20 plus years. Is there anything about the program that's either going on right now or historically that you think is kind of a fun fact or interesting information that parents and families would like to know?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we have been around for a very, very long time. Our services are have changed, they have evolved, they've grown. So we do offer, a lot of different types of services, and I think one of the fun things about our services are the groups that we offer and the workshops that we offer. So I would encourage our families to follow us on Instagram at UW Counseling, and you get all of the information about fun workshops that are coming up. And they are a very nice, kind of gentle transition for students into mental health care. If they're not ready to kind of fully dive into counseling, and they have questions or concerns about what that process is going to be like, I think our workshops are a really casual, fun way to kind of dip your toes in, get to know the counselors and the staff members. For example, just this week, we had a really, really fun workshop that involved canoeing with a counselor. The weather is amazing, right? And we know that in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get a lot of sun, and it's important that we get out there. We move our bodies. And so one of our counselors organized this. Workshop and this kind of a well-being related workshop, and it was a fully packed workshop, totally booked out. So look out for fun and interesting things like that related to mental health, that you can get information on by following us on Instagram.
I feel like I'm making this face over here when you said canoe with a counselor, because how can I canoe with a counselor? That sounds
I said the
absolutely
same thing to
amazing.
myself.
Well, you know
It's like,
what?
my therapist doesn't offer
I
this.
know, right?
This is really funny because when John is the counselor who offered this. When he offered it, a lot of the counselors were like, wait, can you offer it for us as a team as well? Yeah, but that's not the only fun one. We've had so many workshops related to, like, for example, dance and movement and music and art and all kinds of other stuff. So, it's not just kind of very traditional counseling one on one that we offer. We have a variety of services for students.
Yeah, and I like the words you used, gentle and dipping your toes in, because we know for a lot of students, it could be background based, it could be culturally based. Sometimes there's certain stigmas around seeking out services, and so kind of reorienting that in a fun, healthy way, also including the movement. I mean, movement and well-being, I think, go hand in hand with your mental wellness as well. So those are great to hear that we have those types of programs for our students here on campus. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big step. It's something very intentional that students have to do, and it's not, something that a lot of our students take very casually. It involves a lot of thought to start that journey, the counseling journey. Yeah.
Yeah, and you may have mentioned this already, but how many folks are part of your program? How many professional staff do you guys have over there?
Yeah, so we have close to 40 team members, and that includes, so we have a multidisciplinary team. We have um, clinical social workers, psychologists, PhDs, PsyDs. We have interns as well that work in our department, doctoral interns. They're amazing. We love the batch of interns that we get every year. And we also have our support team as well as our psychiatrist team. So very kind of well-rounded, multidisciplinary team, and I love that about our team. We also are very proud of the diversity of our staff. So, not only in terms of identities that we hold, but also our areas of interest and our specialties that we offer. You can read a little bit about our staff on our website. So if you click on the link, Meet the Staff, a lot of our team members have our pictures up and a little description about our areas of interest. So families are welcome to kind of dig into that and get to know the team a little bit more.
Thank you so much for mentioning, the diversity in staff and then the diversity in titles. Can you break down a little bit in terms of, is there a difference if I'm meeting with an intern versus a PsyD or a clinical psychologist? If I'm a student, is there a benefit to meeting with a particular person? Yeah, or why might it benefit a student to look at the bios before coming in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that the different degrees or trainings that we have had in our life, the different team members, they offer a different lens. So I have a PhD, and I found it so valuable to work with my social worker colleagues because the lens that they offer is very unique and different from the team members who have a PsyD or our psychiatry team, for example. Now, the only thing that I would inform students or kind of have them keep in mind is that when they work with our interns, they do have to be willing to be recorded because our interns do get supervised by a licensed clinician. So they do get recordings done of the session that are then watched by their supervisor. And after the recordings are watched, they are erased. So they're not stored for any extended length of time. We have really, secure means of recording and storage of that information. And the focus of those recordings is really the development of the intern and less so the client. So, kind of just feeling, we hope that the client feels less kind of under the spotlight because it's really the intern that is being kind of listened to and provided that supervision around. So yeah, I would want the students to kind of keep that in mind that if they do work with our interns, they will get recording. But also keep in mind that our interns are in their last year of doctoral training. So after they complete their internship, they're professionals. They've graduated. So it's not that they are in the beginning stages of their doctoral training. They're towards the end, and they've had years of experience. And I'm absolutely amazed by the quality of services that our interns provide.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point of clarity to know. And also just hearing the array of services, just the diversity amongst the staff. We know that these types of things aren't one size fits all. So no matter if your Husky is a first year student, a second year student, you know, upwards, there's different things that they go through at different times. And so they may need access to a different service at a different time on their journey. And so it's nice to know that there's so many different options. I mean, I'm still down for the canoeing, so
Yes,
that's
sign
my
me
vote.
up for the canoeing. Maybe after this podcast, we'll
Yeah,
There, it's a beautiful day.
it
You can't
is
see it on here,
absolutely.
but
Yes, we offer services for all registered students. So, from first years all the way to our graduate students. And certainly, we do see differences in kind of the presenting issues that first year students have versus our graduate students might have. But we cater to the needs of our students from their first year all the way to graduation.
Curious, because you we talked about the workshops, we've talked about working one-on-one with someone. When do you recommend, a specific service, or when should a student meet with someone individually versus attending a workshop, attend or versus, accessing another type of service?
Yeah, okay, so that is a really good question. What I typically recommend is that perhaps students want to start with a program we have that's called Let's Talk. So, Let's Talk is also a very kind of easy way to get into counseling. Um, Typically, well, actually, I should say there is no wait list for getting an appointment with Let's Talk. There are some scheduled time slots that are available for Let's Talk, but there are also weekly walk in availability for Let's Talk. And in Let's Talk, you meet with a counselor. You meet with a UW Counseling Center counselor and you talk about kind of what's going on with you. And during that conversation, it's a shorter conversation, so it's not like a full 1 hour typical counseling session. It's a shorter session, typically around 20 minutes. But in that conversation, the counselor will be able to kind of hear what you're looking for and then make a recommendation and say, oh, you know what? For your particular needs, you want to think about our this workshop that's coming up, or you want to think about this group that we have, which will be a great fit for you. So let me give you some information about that. They might refer the student to another resource on campus, or they might say, you know what? I think that individual counseling would be really helpful for you. Let me guide you on how to get connected with an individual counselor at the counseling center. So, Let's Talk is a wonderful place to get started. Students can get in quickly, they can connect with the counselor, and the counselor will be able to hear their individual concerns and then make specific recommendations based on what the student is presenting with.
That's a very thorough diagnostic and sounds like a very quick meeting, which I know students can certainly appreciate not having to go through a full hour session.
Yes, yes. And in unlike a first session for counseling one-on-one, where there's a proper assessment that's done, where we evaluate kind of different areas of your life, and come up with a diagnosis and a treatment plan and all of that good stuff. Let's Talk is way more casual than that. We're not doing a full assessment. We're not giving a diagnosis. We're not coming up with a treatment plan. We're just kind of listening to your concerns and making a recommendation on how to move forward.
Good first steps.
Yes, absolutely. I like that. Good first step.
I'm thinking about our family orientation session yesterday, and there were two really common themes that came up in the questions. And you touched on one earlier when you were talking about how beautiful the weather is right now, and that it's great to get outside, but then what happens in the winter. And so I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about, specifically for our Huskies who are coming in from really sunny states where it's sunny all year long. Are there things that you recommend for students when it gets a little bit darker, a little bit rainier?
Yeah, so we absolutely do see students coming in with concerns just about their mood being down because of the weather, and that's absolutely a real experience that students have here. Um, I tell students seek out our services, make intentional efforts to get your body moving. we know exercise is so helpful for mental health. So it's important that even when it gets dark at 4 o'clock, that you create time to get your body moving. Make sure you get your vitamin D levels checked out. Get connected with friends and support group. Light therapy is helpful. And then, of course, there is counseling. We are here to help with the treatment of seasonal affective disorder. So come see us.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you.
That's a great question, Emily. As a native Pacific Northwestern, it's very real.
Very real. Yes.
Right.
It's a real struggle.
I know it's beautiful right now, but I know when we hit, October, November. And then I think the second question that comes up often a lot, that we ask or are asked, insurance. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like in terms of services?
Yeah. So at the counseling center, we do bill insurance for counseling and our other services as well, like, for example, psychiatry. The way that finances, fees, and so on are handled for psychiatry is different than they're handled for counseling. So, if a student is coming in for counseling services, they will be asked for their insurance information that they'll have to upload. So, it's a good idea to have your insurance card handy and be familiar with your insurance, and upload that to the student portal. Now, if your insurance doesn't cover counseling or if there's a deductible or a copay, I do not want students to worry about that because whatever is not covered by the insurance comes out of student activity fees that the student has already paid to the university. So I really want students and families to hear this. They don't have to pay anything additional out of pocket for counseling services at the UW Counseling Center. We do bill insurance, but whatever the insurance doesn't cover, let's say they don't cover counseling at all, or there's a big deductible, or there's a copay, that comes out of student activity fees that they've already paid to the university. So nothing additional out of pocket. That's for counseling. Now, if a student is coming in to see our psychiatrist, for example, or somebody from our psychiatry team, that is handled like a typical medical a doctor's appointment. So if they go to their primary care physician, it's similar to that. So if they pay out of pocket or they have a copay or anything like that, then it would be the same thing for that visit as well.
That's fabulous to know. I don't think I fully understood that either until you mentioned that, and I see Emily and I's faces both like, that's incredible because,
Right? I feel like, underlined
yeah,
bold. Thank you for saying that multiple times and then saying, the power
exactly.
of
Yeah,
that student activities fee as well and things that are covered. That's really, really wonderful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. We never want our students to feel like, they can't access counseling, mental health resources because they can't afford it. In fact, I tell students, look, if you're struggling with your mental health, get help during college, during your university experience, because once you leave here, looking for an individual counselor, dealing with insurance, all of that, oh, it gets so much more tedious. Totally doable, but involves a few more steps.
For sure. Oh my goodness. I know that we talked about two big ones that I've heard a lot in, honestly the past couple of days, but are there other types of questions that you usually get from students?
Yeah. Um, so a lot of times students want individual counseling. Like that is the only service that they are looking for or they kind of think of and they think of mental health therapy and treatment. But I really would encourage students and families to kind of expand their idea of mental health treatment. So it's not just individual one-on-one counseling that has been proven to be helpful for mental health needs. Group treatment is a very, very effective, efficient way of getting support for mental health disorders. And we have so many wonderful groups that we offer through the counseling center. Um, I run a group for children of immigrant parents. We have a lot of students who whose parents immigrated to the United States, and they bring their unique struggles to their university experience. So seek that out. We have another group for graduate students. We have a men's group. We have a group. We have a group for tabletop therapy, which uses gaming as a treatment modality for a lot of disorders like anxiety, social anxiety, and so on and so forth. So, really, really interesting groups. We have a group called Understanding Self and Others. Oh my gosh, we have like way too many groups to name them all here. Grief group, women's group, graduate women's group. So lots of wonderful groups that we have. Um, and I would certainly encourage students to go on our website at the beginning of each quarter because we update all of the group information. And if you're following us on social media, which I hope by now, at this stage of the podcast, you are, it's at UW Counseling. You will get all of the information about groups. And that's a really, really good way to get treatment and support. So we have that option. We have individual counseling. We have workshop. We have Let's Talk. Um, yeah, so lots of other resources for students to consider besides just individual one-on-one counseling, which students might have to wait to get an appointment for sometimes.
And some of the stuff you've mentioned, though it's, considered like group therapy or those types of things with the activities and the recreation piece and all the other movement and things that you've added to it, it probably doesn't really even feel like they're doing therapy. I mean, it sounds like fun get-togethers to me.
Absolutely, yes. But it is for your well-being, your mental health, right? Yeah, yeah. Um, Emily, earlier you mentioned in the parent orientations that we've just started for the summer. Um, and one question that came up was kind of the how long do students have to wait to get an appointment? Like, how busy does it get, right? That can be a concern for some students. And yes, sometimes there is a wait for that one on one counseling appointment. Like I mentioned, we are a large team, but again, we are a huge university, and so we do get booked up for individual counseling appointments. But there are different access points for mental health care at the counseling center. So if it feels like, oh, the first available counseling session, counseling appointment isn't for a week or 2 weeks out. What do I do? Well, there are different resources that are available for you. You can always access Let's Talk. We have that available weekly, right? There is no appointment needed for Let's Talk. So that's there. Second, we have a resource called My SSP. The name of that is changing, but the resource is continuing. It's going to be called Husky Helpline in the future, which is so much better than My SSP because it
That's a
kind of,
great name.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yeah,
a great
right?
name.
Like
Yes, go
it's more
Huskies. Yes.
descriptive. But basically, My SSP is um, an avenue for students to access same day counseling. So They can do it virtually or by phone, right? So there's an app, there's a phone call, there's a phone number that students can call. That information is all on our website if you want to take a look at that. And students can get connected and get a full counseling session the same day, usually immediately, but definitely within the same day. So they don't have to wait a week or 2 weeks for an appointment with a counselor. So we have that resource available. And then workshops. We have, periodically we have like drop in mindfulness sessions as well. So look for all of that type of, services through the counseling center. And even if there is a wait for an individual counseling session, like 2 weeks out, make that appointment. Those 2 weeks go by really fast. So just because there is a little bit of a wait, you're like, oh no, that's too far. I'm not going to make an appointment. Go ahead and make that appointment. That week or that couple of weeks will go by really, really fast.
I'm just curious if do other students potentially cancel, and is there opportunity for students to get called in when those cancellations happen, or
Oh, that's such a great
Oh,
question. Thank you,
yeah,
Zach.
Zach,
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you asked that. Yes, absolutely. We have a cancellation list, so you can put your name on that. And when a student cancels, which we always ask students that if they can't make it to an appointment, to please cancel it so that we can release that appointment to other students. So if a student does cancel, we do go down our cancellation list. So if you get a call from the counseling center, please
answer
answer
your
your
phone,
phone.
answer your
Yes,
phone.
answer your phone. Because we just keep going down the list. If you don't answer, we call the next person. Because
Hot potato
usually
that day.
yeah, that's the same day type thing, right? Like, oh, we have an appointment that opened up today. So yeah, it's kind of fast moving.
I was just gonna comment. I feel like I've been smiling throughout this conversation because I feel like you're presenting counseling and mental health services in such this approachable way, and then giving us all of these really great action steps and sort of bullet points. And I know that we're probably short on time as we're at some point wrapping up this conversation. But, and of course, I'm going to ask kind of a big picture question. But I'm curious, I keep saying, we're going into fall 2023. We're moving further and further away from what was very much a all virtual, distance between students, distance between each other. Are you seeing changes, in students or in the way people are interacting with each other and or approaching counseling or mental health services?
Yeah, so Emily, are you asking if if we're open to seeing students more in person? Is that the question you're asking?
Actually, that's a great question to add on to it. I was thinking more about specific trends you're seeing, based on where we are time. But I think if you want to also answer the piece about, yeah, are you remote, in person? What does that look like? Is there
Yeah,
telehealth
happy to
options?
answer both those questions. So, we provide services both in person and virtually as well. So, we have several in person appointments available, also lots of virtual appointments available. We have found that a lot of our undergraduate students prefer in person services. Because they might be sharing a res room, and so finding that kind of private space might be a little bit more challenging for them. Um, but our graduate students, we found that they really prefer the virtual sessions. We offer both for both. So if an undergraduate wants a virtual session, absolutely they can. If they want it in person, they can. Um, yeah. And in terms of any kind of differences, the students that are coming in now, they, spend a big chunk of their high school experience, really kind of the formative years, in social isolation. And so we do see some students coming in with challenges around, developing relationships and connections. And, in the past, we used to see students who, they have those really great high school friendships already developed, and they have a lot of students from the same high school, potentially local high school, coming in, and they're connected with each other. We see a little bit less of that, right? Because of COVID, unfortunately. Um, we offer some wonderful workshops to help students with that. We actually had offered a workshop just this past quarter, I believe, around the social anxiety of going back to in-person stuff, right? How to navigate all of that. And I think that that is so valuable for some students, how to make those social connections. We have a group around that as well. So yes, we certainly do see some differences these days, and we are offering some what we feel are accessible services for students to get support around that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for answering really both questions, and just, yeah, talking about kind of the differences that you're seeing now. And of course, the workshops that students can attend.
Yeah, that's great. We had a question around first year families and resources for their students, but I feel like we've covered that pretty thoroughly throughout our conversation today.
But
And we're going to
actually,
share.
Zach, can I mention one other resource?
No, add on.
Yes.
Absolutely, yes.
Oh my goodness. All the
Please, please.
resources. Yes.
So there, like if our parents go to our website, we have a collection of resources for parents specifically. So things like how to have a conversation with your first year student around accessing mental health care, and things like that. Like lots of good resources dedicated specifically for parents. So I would encourage families to check that out.
Oh, I'm so glad that you highlighted that. That's perfect.
But I cut you off, Zach. You were saying something. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're fine. That more than answered my question. I was going to ask the resources for those folks too, and share that we have information on our family resources section of our parent website as well that I believe is either linked to you all or copywritten over, basically. And
Great
then
minds, Zach. See, we're thinking
exactly,
alike.
and see, we work with all these folks all the time. And we often share on our Facebook and our Instagram tips and things that you all share as well. So we certainly appreciate that, but we'd encourage folks to get tuned into your Instagram specifically, get familiar with your website, all those resources that you've mentioned today. We'll be sure to put down below in the description when we post this episode. And so folks can have quick access to those after listening through. But I just want to thank you again for your time today and going over the incredible amount of services that we have, the incredible amount of staff that we have available to all of our Huskies, and just the dedication that it sounds like everyone from your team brings to their work every day. So I just personally want to thank you again for your time.
Ditto. Yes. Big thank you. Am I allowed to ask both of you kind of a self-care question as we're thinking about it's so beautiful out? Do either of you have any exciting weekend plans in this beautiful weather?
Yeah. So I have two boys. Um, and when I can get them to do stuff with me, we one's a teenager and one's a preteen, so you know.
Okay, this adds up. This adds up.
But yes, we also have a dog, so love spending time outside, and we have a few parties this weekend that we're going to be attending.
Oh, very nice. That sounds great. We're going to, we have two dogs at home as well. They're our fur babies. Um, and we are going to go to Marymore Dog Park and potentially one other. It's their favorite thing to do, and also ours as well, because I don't know if everyone knows about Marymore Dog Park, but when you go there, there's also a dog washing station open until 6.
Oh.
And it's a very reasonable price point. I think it's like $12. Don't quote me on that. We're certainly not sponsored, and I'm not promoting the dog washing station. But for your little Bubbas who have been swimming or running in the dirt and all that stuff, it's very convenient to wash, and they have the vacuum and everything before you get into the car.
Sounds
So
great.
That is
that'll be
cool.
either Saturday or Sunday. Yeah.
Oh,
That's
What
wonderful.
about
I
you,
am
Emily?
also I am a dog owner as well. So, yeah, maybe going for a hike or wandering down near the river out here. So, yeah, excited to really take some time and breathe a little bit too.
all this chat about dogs reminds me of another really wonderful service we offer. We offer pet therapy. So we have dogs that come
Okay.
in
If it couldn't get any better.
weekly, and
Right?
you can come and play with fur babies. It's amazing.
Right? So if,
Um,
the last
that's
30
great.
minutes, we're just I love that this is sort of what we're ending on to, the pet therapy.
That's incredible. Well, on that note, thank you again for being here. I mean, I don't think there's anything better than pet therapy to end on.
I would agree.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this podcast. I love
Oh,
it.
you're very welcome. You're very welcome. We will certainly be asking you back for sure.
Who do we have on coming up for episode 2?
Episode 2, we have Rebecca over at the Visitor Center. So, the Visitor Center is a resource that folks can reach out to either when they're on campus or prior to visiting campus, even after they leave campus. But they have information about museums, about maps on where to eat, and all sorts of fun stuff. We also have some parent and family program swag over there. So, if you don't get a hold of us and are in need of some swag, you can stop by the Visitor Center as well. But it's a great resource available to all of our Huskies, all of their parents and families, and folks just coming to visit campus. So be sure to tune in to that episode
I will
too.
look. I'm
And
excited for episode 2 and asking Rebecca if she has a dog as well. But, anyways, thank you both. This has been wonderful.
all right, everybody, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
The Husky Huddle Up podcast series is a collaboration between the University of Washington's first year programs and parent and family programs to provide parents and families equitable access to information in support of the Husky success. The Husky Huddle Up podcast is produced by me, Chloe Giselle, a recent graduate from the UW who received a Bachelor's of Arts through the Cinema and Media Studies program.